My guest at this time is Grover Norquist. He is the president of Americans for Tax Reform. We have talked to him a number of times over the years, of course. We talked to him in connection with the tax bill that passed in 2017. We talked to him in anticipation of what a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives might look like for taxpayers towards the end of 2018. Now we're looking at another issue, gas taxes. And it's not the Democrats that are pushing this, although they seem to like them too, but Republicans who are suddenly warmer to the idea to pay for infrastructure improvements. And Grover, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Let me start with the national picture. This is from McClatchy. The Trump administration and congressional Democrats have found something they agree on, and it could mean higher taxes on gasoline and diesel fuel. Last week, President Donald Trump's transportation secretary, Elaine Chao, told senators that a gas tax hike was on the table when asked whether the White House would support such a move. And at the state level, we now see a Republican governor signing legislation passed by Republican majorities in the Buckeye State for 10.5 cents per gallon of a gas tax hike, and it's up to 19 cents for diesel. So what do you make of Republicans? They say they don't like it, but it's necessary. What's your reaction?
Well, two things. It's understandable that year after year, the politicians say they're going to prioritize fixing the roads, widening the roads, widening bridges, and so on. And then they don't. And so people believe that maybe if they raise taxes, they would do that. In point of fact, when you do raise the gas tax in various states, the politicians siphon off much of that money into things that have nothing to do with roads, into light rail, which interferes with roads, or subways, or just general revenue. In Wisconsin, they took over a 10-year period before Governor Walker, the Republican reformer, came in, $1 billion, $100 million a year of money that was told to the people of Wisconsin that because they were paying higher gas taxes, they would be getting roads, and $1 billion was taken out. And then they turned around and go, oh, we don't have roads. We forgot to build roads. We must raise taxes. So politicians love to use their failure to focus on roads as an excuse for you to give them more money. It's a bad idea. Nobody should fall for it. I do want to be clear, the wording of Elaine Chao. She said everything's on the table. When asked, is the administration supportive of this, she did not say yes. She said everything's on the table, which is a polite way of, I just told you nothing. Elaine Chao is obviously married to Mitch McConnell, who's the head of the Senate. And the one thing Republicans do not want to do is go into the next election having raised taxes on middle-income Americans. When Clinton raised taxes on middle-income Americans with the gas tax, the money didn't go to roads. It went into general revenue to discourage you from driving. Thank you very much. What we'd like is roads, not to be told we can't drive. Now, in Ohio, you're quite right. There's a liberal Republican named DeWine who ran promising he wouldn't raise taxes, and he turned around and pushed a very high tax increase on roads. The Senate and the House said no, and they brought it down. Sadly, the House is not Republican. It is a coalition where one Republican brings a bunch of union Democrats in Ohio. So there's only one body in Ohio that has a Reagan Republican leadership, and that's in the Senate. They fought very hard against this, but it's difficult sometimes to fight against governors. So unfortunately, the taxes were raised. I think it's a mistake. I think Ohio will find that. And we've already seen Ohio announce they have no intention of spending all that money on roads. So they once again lied to the people of Ohio. They raised taxes. Some of that money might get to roads, but a bunch of it they've admitted won't. So that's unfortunate. People get fooled. One thing to keep in mind, a politician who says to you, I care so much about fill in the blank, roads, prisons, education, that I'm willing to raise taxes to support it. That politician did not tell you how much he likes roads, prisons, education. He just told you that everything that's presently in the multi-billion-dollar budget of our state is more important than roads, because I wouldn't stop doing any of that and put it into roads. So everything in the budget, every wasteful, stupid idea that's been invented in the last 200 years and accumulated in Ohio, is more important to the governor of Ohio than roads, because he couldn't find a penny of anything to move to roads. So politicians who say, I am willing to raise taxes to do X, that is proof of how much I care about X, are telling you the opposite. They are telling you X, roads, prisons, they change it. They change it around depending on the flavor of the month. What do they think people want, and what are they not giving people, and what do they have no intention of doing for people? Right now it's roads.
Let's pretend for a moment that they actually did plan to use the money for roads. As you just said, in Ohio, they're already admitting that they're not going to use all of it, at least in that direction. What's the track record on this, whether at the federal or state levels? Even if the money were to be put towards roads, what's the impact on people when they have their gas tax raised?
Well, of course, if you send your money to Washington, D.C., there is no reason to believe it will come back to your state. So your money can be used. You can pay more for gas taxes when you drive down the road in Virginia, and you can be paying for the road to nowhere, which was in Alaska. So, one, there's no reason to raise the federal gas tax. The federal highway system was built in the 1950s. They are not building new highways. They're just repaving ones that they have. And that can be done in every state. There's no interstate commerce thing here. It's possible that, when you drive from Pennsylvania into Ohio, they may want the federal government to pave the line between the two states, but that doesn't cost very much. This is a reason for Washington to raise money and then give some of it back to states in return for political power and favors, and that leads, of course, to corruption. Now, the other challenge is when they say they're going to put it on roads. If you raise taxes in Ohio or in Washington, D.C., there's something called the Davis-Bacon Act. The Davis-Bacon Act is also known as a prevailing wage act. It raises the cost by law of anything the federal government builds. It was originally done to keep African Americans from moving from Alabama to New York to work in construction, so they wanted to price them out of the market. It's a policy that the South African government used to use as well. And that law continues. To this day, we have this law aimed at keeping blacks out of the workforce from the South. And it's to raise the cost of producing something, to building a road, for pernicious reasons. But what does it do? It inflates the cost of every road, every bridge, every line by about 20 to 30%. So when you raise taxes, you're not, even if we're going to spend the whole dollar on roads, they don't, but pretend they did. 20 to 30% of that is siphoned off in overspending that doesn't buy you a single mile of road anywhere.
And then when it comes to the impact on our wallets, not only do consumers have to pay that at the pump, but as you and I have mentioned a number of different times, if you want to buy just about anything, that thing has to get to you, and that thing can get to you often by trucks or planes or whatever, which need fuel, and so that costs more to bring it, which in turn raises the price of the good or service. So how much are we looking at in terms of additional spending if, in fact, this type of thing were to go through?
Well, the cost of most goods is about 20% transportation. You make something in China, you have to put it on a boat, you have to put it on a truck, and that takes diesel fuel that they've raised gas. They want to raise the gas tax on. So very much so that this is a hidden cost. In addition to the obvious cost, you go to the gas station and you see that you're now paying more per gallon. But there's a hidden cost because when you go to the grocery store, everything that was trucked, go to the back of a grocery store, see all the trucks unloading? They're driving with diesel fuel. You were paying for that. You were paying for the higher taxes on that when you buy avocados and anything else. When you go to the clothing store, when you go to the mall, take a look at all the trucks unloading things into the mall that they can sell you. You're paying for all of that diesel fuel. So it is, you're quite right. It's not just what you pay at the pump. It's what you pay every day in the increased cost of everything.
Avocados have been quite the economic object lesson this week. Grover, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
You got it. Good to be with you.
Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. I'm Greg Columbus reporting for Radio America.